Oh, just in time. Bong bong. Hello! Welcome to another episode of the Animal Crossing Fringe Festival Zoom, not Zoom, live stream. And we are here with Sharmini Kumar of 24 Karat Productions and Austen Con.
Hello.
Hello. Sharmini, before we do this, a lovely maze is playing Sharmini, but Sharmini is also here. I have a little surprise for you.
Okay.
Ta-da!
Oh my gosh! That is adorable!
Yes, as you can probably tell from the fact that we mentioned you're from Austen Con, we've got a deal with Jane Austen on us today. So yes, let's do a little trip around the island.
Yes, please.
And talk Jane Austen. But first, let's see. We have a visitor to our campsite today, which happens like what, once every few weeks or so. Who do we have today? We shall find out. You're
You just left me out.
You'll get to see it.
Okay.
Someone named Nan, a goat named Nan. Do you live here? I'm just visiting. Hello, Nan. No.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, so we get visitors every so often,
Nice.
and you can sometimes ask them to move into your island, but we have specially curated our villagers
Right.
to go to
Okay.
head homes.
So Nan will not be staying. No?
I mean, Nan will just be here for the day.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Nan.
Hello. All right, so tell us, what is Austen Con?
Austen Con is a day-long kind of festival convention of Jane Austen related events, and this year it is, thank you COVID, entirely online.
Yeah. Well, why Jane Austen? Like of all people, you know, like where did fascination with Jane Austen start?
Yeah, excellent question. I'm going to be slightly distracted because I'm just watching myself on the Twitch stream.
Yes, like Sharmini doesn't have the game, so it's probably on
I'm
fire
so new to this, and I'm so cute in this game, and you are adorable, and I love it. And yes, that's me.
Thank you.
So you asked me a
just like
question?
this is the house you were calling a Netherfield Park.
Oh, yes.
So we can move it there.
Yes, let's do that.
Also, hi Bradley, who's watching on YouTube.
Hello,
Hi, Bradley.
Good old Bradley. Shout
Bradley
out.
will be performing at Austen
Yes.
Con.
Yes, Bradley store.
Shout out to Bradley.
May also be part of Animal Crossing ACNH Fringe. We'll more info about that
Nice.
later. Anyway, yes.
Nice.
Why Jane Austen?
Why Jane Austen? I mean, look, there's a bunch of reasons. I got to like Jane Austen as just a teenager. You know, not cool stories, like romantic stories,
Mm-hmm.
all that sort of, you know, costume drama shit. That's you know, so much fun. But then, like, the more I started thinking about it, the more I was like, this is wild. It's really, you know, it's clever. And then the more I started thinking about it even more, I was like, there's a lot of stuff in here that really connects into stuff that I'm interested in about, you know, colonialism and race, and the way that plays out in books, and in the way that Austen's work is talked about, and in the way that her books have been used across the British Empire for centuries. So I just find it fascinating on a personal level. I mean, it's popular, so it's always like people are interested. So, you know, and if people are interested, and we can talk about some of the stuff that I'm interested in about gender and race, then I'll do it.
Like, it's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned like colonialism and race earlier on, and like I'm familiar enough with your work that I know that's a common thread. And the disclaimer, I guess, Sharmini was my director for Queer Lady Magician. That's how we first met. But you know, a comment that we've gotten is that we don't look like the sort of person who would like Jane Austen, aka you're not white.
Right.
But what specific, like, could you go more into like how colonialism and race plays into Jane Austen?
Well, can I say first that there are Austen appreciation societies in like everywhere across the world. There is Jane Austen Appreciation Society in Japan, Pakistan, in Brazil and Argentina, and shout out to any of those people if they're here.
Shout out. Hello. Maybe you can find out. You can keep up later because it'll be saved. Anyway, go on.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. But what was the question? What do I like about Jane Austen?
Yeah, like if you could go on more on like the colonialism and race aspect because you mentioned
colonialism and race. Yeah. She's very she kind of touches on things really briefly, and it's never super clear what she actually thinks about things. So she kind of touches on slavery and the abolition movement, and she kind of touches on the role of the British in India as colonial powers, but she's not really clear about it, and I feel like that lets people read on to her work different things. So people who are very, I guess you'd say, conservative readers of hers will be like, see, she is, pro all this stuff, and this is all good, and it was all, lovely. And people who are more interested in critiquing that stuff can look at it and go, actually, the way she portrays it is not actually that positive, and there's a subtlety in what she's trying to do. So there's kind of layers there to unpick. I think it's fascinating that, Jane Austen's one of those authors that, would be set as syllabus texts for high school for not just in England, but in India and in, wherever else, and be like, read this, because this is what you as a colonized person should aspire to, even though you're never allowed to actually attain it, if that makes sense. And so the way that that's been used, and then now there's a whole kind of, I don't know, movement is probably not the right word, but there's a whole wave of people of color reappropriating Austen's work and reinterpreting her work and being like, okay, well, we've got Pride and Prejudice and zombies, so why can we not have Pride and Prejudice, set in Pakistan, or Pride and Prejudice set in, a diaspora in New York or something like that. And those novels are just exploding in popularity. So I just find it fascinating that people are engaging with Austen at that level.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about, like, if we have Pride and Prejudice and zombies, why not Pride and Prejudice and brown people? It's like how people complain about, having like POC in medieval fantasy is inaccurate when you have dragons and fairies, and that's the thing you're hung up on is, oh my god, some of the people here aren't white. That is
yeah, so there's that in Austen adaptation, definitely. And I don't know if people have seen the ads for the Netflix series Bridgerton that's coming out.
Ooh,
at
I didn't know that. What's that about?
It's a Shondaland, Shonda Rhimes. So it's based on a series of romance novels from about, I think, 15 to 20 years ago. So that some of the novels, the shall we say, the ethics are not always, sort of modern, contemporary, in terms of consent and whatever else. But she's basically cast. So it's a series of romance novels set in the Regency period. So it's very specifically 1814 era, and Shonda's cast completely colorblind. Yeah. So, and it's this, big lavish production with the gowns and the balls and all of that stuff, and cast completely colorblind. Why do we be talking about that?
There's like talking about you can't have brown people in.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. We're just sitting on the couch.
Yeah, so Master Aiden, this, I don't know if you met, like, is this room a school or are we having Animal Crossing school at the moment? I guess both. But this is our artist retreat. So it's like, you can come here and write your novel. You have a kitchenette and a bed. And you can come check out the bathroom.
A stereo.
It's all like old-timey. But I was just thinking, we were talking about that earlier. I was thinking about how Bradley and I went to see one of your productions of Pride and Prejudice, which
Yes.
has the one where Mary is like the narrator. And I was very
Yes.
disappointed to learn that Mary isn't actually the for the character in the actual Pride and Prejudice. But like,
Yes.
you know, I was sitting there with Bradley and thinking, oh my god, this is a Bollywood movie. This is
Yes.
absolutely a Bollywood movie with like the parents trying to marry you off,
Yes.
and there's like all this family shenanigans, and like of course
Yes.
there's what the kind of like the one younger daughter who's like trying to escape and
Yeah.
gets into trouble, and oh no, how dare you marry someone outside your state, like that.
Yes.
All of
Absolutely. I mean, it's been done as a Bollywood. It's been done. So, what had him? I think like Gorinda Chadha, who did Friends It Like Beckham,
Mhm.
did Bride and Prejudice, which was the Bollywood version of Pride and Prejudice.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so there's there's heaps. There's Austenistan. There's yeah. Yes.
What?
That is yes. Austenistan is a novel. No, series of short stories, I believe, by Pakistani authors.
Yeah.
Sort of reinterpreting Austen stuff, and there's layers to that, right? So there's so many layers in terms of, is it when we kind of look at it that way, and when writers of color write their culture back into this novel, what does that mean? Are we reappropriating something that we're entitled to have? Are we embracing a kind of weird form of colonialism ourselves? Like, what does that mean? And there's lots of different discussions about that we'll definitely go into. I think it's really fascinating to see, and certainly that has definitely been kind of explored, the connections between Jane Austen and the family stuff and the pressures to marry and all that stuff, and South Asian families and structures.
Yeah. Just to fill in, to answer Master Aiden's question, in a sense, what we're doing right now, and for those who are new to the stream, hello, welcome to anyone who's watching on YouTube. We have built an entire Fringe Festival island on Animal Crossing, and we are hosting artist chats with people like Sharmini and many others, doing it Tuesdays and Saturdays. And on the 20th of November, we are doing an entire Fringe Festival via Animal Crossing. We will have performances and events and shenanigans. So ACNH for more. And speaking of live streamed events, let's get back to Austen Con. Where did you get the idea to come up with the whole convention for Jane Austen?
So I had started going to like fan conventions with some friends of mine, and just love the concept of it. Like, I realize that they don't always sort of live up to their own ideals in terms of inclusivity and whatever else, but the aims of inclusivity and just celebrating fan culture and celebrating fans kind of taking ownership of the properties they love, as well as interacting with creators and stuff like that. I was like, because at the time, so I was attending that sort of stuff and appreciating it, and then attended a Jane Austen festival, which was a lot more serious. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I mean, there's something in that. Like, it was sort of, people very taking the Regency era very seriously and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but is there a way we can kind of bring these things together and have like the best of both worlds around Austen? Yeah. And I said to my friend Avril, I feel like I want to try running an Austen Con that's a bit like this and a bit like a fan con and a bit like something else. And she's like, well, you should do it then. And I'm like, okay, I guess we are. And 3 years later, here we go. 3 years later.
So this is your third year of Austen Con.
This is the third year of Austen Con, yeah.
How's it been? How have people taken the other 2 Austen Cons so far?
So far, so good. Like, everything has teething problems with, and we're running everything on micro budgets and all of that.
Oh yeah. Stuff. We don't know that at all.
Well, I mean, since you have a massive budget for your island,
Clearly.
you have
A
built a
million bells.
resort.
Anyway, go on.
Sorry. Ooh, festival producing. I'm just sorry.
This is Biddy, by the way, our resident fashion designer.
Oh,
For my villagers.
okay. I love it.
They're all specially picked to live on our island.
Yes. Oh, so like
So, like,
yeah, old-fashioned
people-
sewing
like-
machine and everything. Like people who have come seem to have enjoyed it. We've had lots of good responses so far, and lots of repeat customers. So, yeah, I feel like that's we're heading in the right direction with it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And now they're moving it online. It has, aside from the fact that, you know, the format has had to change because we're moving it online, has that also kind of changed what the content is as well? Like, has it opened up some things? Has it closed off some things? You know, because they're on, you know, how has it changed by moving things online?
Yeah. So, well, content means being online means that obviously we can access people from across the globe. So
Yeah.
some of our speakers will be dialing in, zooming in, you know, streaming in from different parts of the world. But we've worked really hard to be interactive with it. Ooh, music.
This is Kat, our messy zinster.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Kat.
Kat's cool.
Yeah. We've worked really hard to make it interactive so that it's not, we don't necessarily, I mean, yeah, obviously I have no objection if people want to put it on in the background for their entire day and just kind of check in and check out.
Yeah.
But for people who do want to engage more, we've tried really hard to include stuff that is participatory, that will, you know, get you to, you know, make something, create something, send us a photo, we'll show that up, flash that up on the stream. You know, we'll do some dancing, and dancing is, you know, usually.
Yeah, I saw you had like one of the events is a Regency dance class.
Regency era dance, like people who have seen Regency era movies will know. Ooh, who's the bear?
This is Tutu, our ballerina.
Tutu! Hello, Tutu.
Tutu's just wandering around. Let's see if we can track her down, talk to her. While I unsuccessfully pry myself from this chair.
Tutu dancing. Oh, Regency dancing. People
Yes.
who know.
Speaking of,
Speaking Tutu of Regency dancing, it's sort of like, you know, when you see them on you know, the Pride and Prejudice and whatever else, it's sort of like, it's not really like a holding in your arms kind of waltzing dancing. It's this sort of hopping around kind of in patterns around each other kind of dancing. Which sort of does lend itself to, you know, social distancing and stuff like that. A bit more.
social distance safe dancing. They were ahead of their time.
You could totally social distance, because, you know, even when they touch hands, you could. They're usually wearing gloves, and they're at arm's length, so they're like 1.5 meters. So you could almost do it social distance. But no, we're doing it from the safety of our own homes.
Oh man, it makes me think of like when people, the stereotype of like, oh yes, you put a Bible's length between you. You know, that old trope. It's like, wow, they were really ahead of their time with that.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah, you can't have people embracing in public. Oh my gosh.
No, really, it was just because they wanted to avoid a pandemic. That was all. No,
Clearly,
not
yes.
about virtues or anything. Just,
No, it was just about
just to avoid people.
getting consumption.
Yes. Like my character just did. Oh no! Hello, Bastard. Hello, Gems. Thanks for tuning in and watching. This is Julian, human the unicorn we're talking about. This is his house. He's a clairvoyant. He'll read tarot cards.
Oh, awesome.
Do they
awesome.
mention like astrology at all in the Austen books? Like, is she witchy, or is she kind of a skeptic? Like, oh, this fake spiritualist. No. I'm sorry, your
Not that I
character's
can
getting
think
haunted
of
all the
off-
time.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. But I'm hoping next year that one of the presentations for Austen Con 2021, which we're already planning to do, will be Austen-based tarot.
Ooh.
Yes.
Does that exist already? Like, is there an Austen tarot deck?
Not
This
as
is a
far
tarot
as I
deck for
know.
everything.
No. Yeah, it's a thing that one of my friends has basically kind of, I don't know, dreamed up is the right word. As far as I know, I could be completely misunderstanding, but I understand she's kind of developing that. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think she was into. Yeah. No, she was very, very much a pragmatist. Yeah.
Aye. So she'd probably be like, Mercury is not in retro. Who cares if Mercury is in retrograde?
Yeah, I feel like she would be that sort of person. Yeah.
It's like, get over yourself. This is Mira. Mira is our like. It's too bad you can't enter her house right now. Like she's out because her house is literally a theater.
Oh wow.
Like there's a dinosaur play
Yes.
happening in there. So I made
That's
like a new
fabulous.
TV set out here.
Yeah. That's cool.
There's a lot of fairly some infamous, some famous adaptations of Austen. We're talking about Pride and Prejudice earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. It's always Pride and Prejudice. Is there like kind of works from Austen that people don't really know about?
Depends what you mean by people.
Well, I guess like
Don't
like
really know
not
about...
you a super fan, but like the general public, like they know about Pride and Prejudice. Sense and
Yes.
Sensibility is also one of hers.
Yes.
I am very uncultured.
No, you're doing well. You're doing well. You're 2
Um,
out of 6.
Emma,
Emma, 3 out of 6.
Yes.
That's a pass.
that's a pass. Yay, great.
Yes.
Like, but surely she has written more
So
than just 6.
She published 6 novels in her, well, not even in her lifetime. She published 4 in her lifetime and 2 posthumously.
Oh.
Then she wrote a bunch of stuff that was never published. Masked Sound says Sense and Sensibility. That is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
What are the other 3? What did I miss?
You missed Mansfield Park,
Yep.
which is one of those really hard ones to adapt because the heroine is a very meek and mild character, and is always like, "Oh, I should be more submissive," kind of thing. But there are some interesting readings of that are really hard, and it's the one that probably deals most directly with the question of slavery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the adaptation from, I want to say, early 2000s, late 1990s, really brings that into, like, really leans on that aspect of it. So Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey is one of her earlier works, which is, yes, Brad says, can I talk about Northanger Abbey being essentially a piece of fan fiction? Yes. So Northanger Abbey was like, was basically like her response to, so Gothic fiction was famous, like really popular in Austen's day. So, and Gothic fiction, we mean like pure young virgins who are abducted by these, awful older Italian counts and held in their castle against their will, and then they cry and they faint and they manage to run away, and the cover, yes, and the cover is always like this woman in a white nightgown, basically looking over her shoulder. She runs away from the dark castle with the evil lord, kind of thing. And that whole genre was super popular around the time. And so I was about to say something Twilight.
Something Twilight. This is Dina, by the way, our music teacher.
Oh, hang on.
Let's see.
Oh!
Does that show you before we move on?
Dina the Duck?
Yeah, Dina the Duck is our music teacher.
Well,
anyway,
I mean,
yes, Gothic novels and
music.
Northanger Abbey. What's it a fanfic of?
In Jane Austen's world, women were expected to be accomplished and have a knowledge of music if they wanted to be considered accomplished and attract a good husband.
There you go. Dina can help you. There.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dina, because that's what I've always wanted.
Yeah.
It's a fan fiction specifically of a novel called Anne Radcliffe, The Mysteries of Udolpho. And the heroine is so into this novel that everywhere she goes, she kind of assumes that something sort of gothic and over the top is going to be happening. So she meets this guy who's just this sort of very, very regular guy. He's not the sort of brooding Byronic hero. He's just this regular dude who's nice to people. And I mean, he's not that ordinary, because we all know that, you know, straight men are not always that nice to people, but whatever. And he's like, and she becomes friends with his sister, and they're like, oh, come and visit. And then they go and they live in this old kind of house that's got a lot of dark corners. And this heroine is like, aha, I can tell just from the dark corners that he must have murdered his wife. And he's hiding her in a closet somewhere on, you know, in the West Wing kind of thing. And then, of course, it just turns out that he didn't kill his wife. He's just a bit of an asshole. And
wow, you know, the bar is so low. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, thank God he didn't kill his wife. He's just an asshole.
He didn't kill his wife. He was just an asshole. And it's sort of Jane Austen sort of skewering this, the idea that, you know, Gothic fiction is the way that life is. But it is also a very affectionate look at Gothic fiction. So she knew the piece of work that she was talking about, that she keeps referencing. She just knew it super well, and is not criticizing the work itself as much as the way that people read it.
I mean, that's kind of like the best kind of affectionate parody.
Yeah.
It's like,
so
you know enough, like, you're kind of making fun of it, but making fun of it kind of out of love, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, it's not mean-spirited.
Yes. And like so you could imagine a Twilight sort of equivalent where, you know, somebody, I guess maybe people are less likely to think that they've met somebody who's a vampire than that they've met somebody who killed their wife. So
it's like, I want to be Sherlock, but I'm completely failed. Yes, tip your busker. I don't know, we have a magician busker.
Awesome. This is cool. So you're right, it's that affectionate parody. And I know that people have written plays and novels in a similar vein as Northanger Abbey, but about fans of Jane Austen. So yeah, it just comes full circle. It's like, okay, so this Jane Austen reader meets this guy who's just an ordinary guy, and she's like, he must be Mr. Darcy with a you know, 10,000 a year in a castle and you know, whatever else. So it's a critique of how things are read, and a sort of gentle skewering of fan communities rather than, I hate this genre, I hate this book.
Right, it feels like she might also be implicating herself in it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And she knew the conventions of the genre, like, inside and out, yeah.
That is, like, it's interesting that Northanger Abbey is one of the lesser known ones, because it seems so relevant, especially now. You know, like, this is debate around fan communities right now about, like, oh, how much does fiction affect reality, and, you know, like, people kind of going too far in either direction sometimes. So it's like this expectation thing we were talking earlier about, like, Jane Austen not necessarily being that explicit about her politics in her work, but people are this idea that, oh, if you don't, like, explicitly call it out, you are endorsing terrible things in your work. And so like, I'm just writing about it.
Yeah.
We're Kabuki's house. Kabukis are, I mean, you can probably tell from the name.
Hello.
Yeah, so we have Northanger Abbey, Mansfield Park. What's the third one? Third in the one Tiara probably hasn't heard of because they are not cultured.
No. What have I missed? Somebody...
People in the chat, who have we missed? Sensitivity, prejudice.
Oh, Persuasion.
Oh, that's one of hers. Okay.
Yes, Persuasion is one of hers. Yes.
Aha.
And that's one of her very beloved ones as well. So that's But yeah, I think the thing with Northanger Abbey, why it's not better loved, is because the people who go to Austen, and you can go to Austen for all kinds of things. You can go to Austen for that social commentary about fan communities and about, you know, relationships and the way we map our fictions onto our relationships and all that kind of stuff. But if you're going to Austen for pure kind of fantasy, historical, white, cishet romance, then it's not it's not a super romantic piece, because the whole of what she's doing is trying to skewer that kind of romanticism. Yeah. And so she basically, in the proposal scene, she doesn't describe the proposal scene very clearly. It is kind of like the term parasocial relationships that I think content creators are talking about at the moment. Yes, I think that's very similar to that. But the relationship is not that romantic in the sense that we think about it. Austen says explicitly that this guy kind of likes this girl, then he realizes that she's in love with him and he feels really grateful, and then he's like, oh, okay, I guess I love her. And you're like, okay, I mean, that could be the foundation for a really happy long-term relationship, but it's not how we think of the grand passion, you know?
It's not like, oh, we met each other across the hall.
Across a crowded room, and then we danced, and at the instant, hands touched, I knew, and when you opened your mouth, it was so witty and blah, blah, blah. It's this much more kind of down-to-earth messiness of kind of real-life relationships, right? Where, one person likes the other person a bit more, and it's not really a misunderstanding. It's just like, one person just likes the other person more until the other person's like, oh, actually, I kind of like this person too, maybe, and let's give it a go and see what happens, kind of thing. So I really like that aspect of it, but if that's not what you're going to Austen for, then it might not be your favorite.
Yeah, this is Tutu's yard, as I mentioned, the ballerina. Oh. This is dance practice. Oh. This is Benjamin is our art teacher. Is he home? I don't think he's home. This is Melba. Guess why she's here? Masan has a question for you. Which Bronte sister and which novel? Well, I mean...
yeah, go ahead.
Different writer, but...
Completely different writer, but I will answer the question anyway, because the answer is Anne and Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I'm assuming they're asking what my favorite one is. And there is a fabulous podcast called Bonnets at Dawn, which is basically two women hosting it. One is an Austen fan and one is a Bronte fan.
Ooh,
okay.
Okay.
So it's an Austen versus Bronte podcast. And
Bronte epic rap battles.
Yes, basically, yes. And those two we're very, very excited because the Bonnets at Dawn ladies are going to be at Austen Con, doing a segment at Austen Con, yes, including a make your own bonnet at home from random crap that you have in your house competition. Yes.
Like the one I'm wearing, kind of.
Yes.
In game it's called the Gothic Bradley, headdress.
Yes. Yes, Bradley. The obscure one is my favorite.
The obscure one.
She was only obscure because she never did anything like outrageous like the other sisters. That's not.
See, the thing with me and my relative uncultured to English literature stuff, because you don't really learn English literature in Malaysia because literature is not a real subject anyway. Long run later. But I would get like Austen and Bronte and that mixed up a little bit.
Yeah.
It seems like sort of slightly old-timey woman writing about social situations.
Yeah. But they were quite different. And Charlotte Bronte, didn't have much time for Jane Austen. She was like, I like things to be dark. I like things to be, she pretty much wrote, this is one of the reasons people get them mixed up is because there's Jane Austen and there's Jane Eyre, which sounds a bit similar. But Jane Eyre, is the fictional character created by Charlotte Bronte.
Right, I think that's also where I get caught up. Like,
yes,
is she like a call out on Jane Austen and all? Like,
I think so. I seriously think so because, and I've talked to Bradley about this before. I have a whole theory that Jane Eyre was written basically because Charlotte Bronte read Northanger Abbey, and went, nah, we have dark shit happening in England too. So she writes this story about this man who lives in this old, run-down castle, who literally has his first wife kept in the attic when she went mad.
Right.
Yes. Then,
like in the story, or is this a thing that actually happened?
No, in the story.
Right.
Yeah. Goth shout out to the Brontes for sure. Yes, but he literally has his wife kept in the attic until she goes so mad that he tries to convince Jane to marry him anyway, even though he's already married. He tries to trick her into bigamy. This is the romantic hero of the story, might I add. And Bradley is very correctly pointing out to me that the wife in the attic is Jamaican and is a person of color.
Oh.
And there have been a very famous book written on from her point of view called Wide Sargasso Sea. And this woman in the attic goes mad, burns the entire house down, killing herself so that Jane is then free to marry the dark brooding hero. And I just feel like Charlotte Bronte the entire time is just going, North Anchor Abbey, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Speaking of people who disappeared, there you are. Were they contemporaries?
No. So Austen died in 1817, and the Brontes started publishing, I want to say late 1830s, early 1840s. Yes. But the other thing is that Jane Eyre is set in Austen's time, which Charlotte Bronte was not alive for. So this adds to my theory that the whole of Jane Eyre is a big FU to North Anchor Abbey.
Oh my god, it's like a fanfic of a fanfic.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah, that's my theory. I can't prove it. I mean, as much as you can ever prove anything in.
This is our Flinders Street station, by the way.
Oh, that's so cute!
Right, it leads somewhere. It leads a little secret. I was gonna say, like, it could be fun to do a play or something where you have Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte just facing off against each other. Oh. But you have written a piece which is Jane Austen and Quentin Tarantino together.
That is true.
Tell us about it for like the rest of us who weren't able to see this. Welcome to a secret bar, by the way.
Hang on, I'm standing on the tracks. That seems unsafe. It's an occupational health and safety. Thank you, Mace. So in my day job, I do some health and safety stuff with rail workers. So
that's okay. You are back in safety. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Austen and Tarantino.
I probably at the time I wrote it's only a 10-minute piece, and probably at the time I wrote it, I felt a lot less angry about Tarantino than I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Austen and Tarantino and Victorian literature's diss tracks. Totally, like people. This is before copyright, so people felt, quite free to appropriate each other's work and be like, "I'm going to comment on this. That's fine." Yeah. And I think that the Bonnets at Dawn ladies are going to be talking about some of Austen's influences, because there were plenty of women authors around. We have this idea that they were really rare. They weren't. They didn't sell as well as men, surprisingly, but there were plenty of them. Austen and Tarantino. So I think it must have been after I saw Django Unchained or one of those ones. I was like, he's all about this kind of big cathartic moments.
Right.
But he's really surprisingly kind of prudish about some things, including sex. So he kind of is, right? He doesn't do sexy movies. He does gore, and he does like these and these sort of really tense moments that then explode into violence. And I was like, I wonder how he and Jane Austen would approach the concept of catharsis, would approach the concept of the way coming back to the stuff that we talked about before, how literature impacts the way we see the world, and how the stories we tell reflect and are reflected in the ways that we behave. And so it's this kind of meeting where she's like, you know, just because people shoot each other doesn't mean that that's the only dramatic thing that can happen. And he's like, you're so formulaic. And she's like, I'm formulaic. You know, we all know what a Tarantino movie is. and then there's a Chekhov's gun that you know that's there, and
like a literal Chekhov's gun.
It's a literal Chekhov's gun. I'm not super great at being subtle. I wouldn't worry, Mask Sound, if you haven't really read any Victorian literature. You've definitely seen stuff that's based on it. And Jane Austen grabs the gun and shoots a mouse, and Tarrant in my play, sorry. And she's like,
like in real life.
No, she grabs it and shoots the mouse, and she's like, it's vermin, you know, we this is what we do with mice. And Tarantino's like, you can't do that to animals.
It's like, this is you know, the thing at the end of every movie is like, no animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
That's right, yes. But we will show you bullet-ridden people from head to toe. And so it's just that sort of clashing of what is storytelling for, and how does it impact us? Does it impact us? Is there such a thing as ethics in storytelling? What is action in a story? Just sort of exploring those two things from a fictional version of Jane Austen and a fictional version of Tarantino.
Right.
Yeah. Where she's the one who's happy to carry out actual violence, and he's the one who's like, no, I think I'm a vegetarian.
It's like, I'm happy to write it, but don't make me do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I mean, which is like a lot of, like we were talking earlier about like whether writing something makes you endorse a thing. You know, a lot of people write like really horrific, gory stuff or things that in real life they would never do.
Oh, I know. Like
never
crime
endorse.
fiction is this massive thing, so you know.
Yeah, or even like in real fiction or like in performance, right? Like playing the villain is so much more fun.
Yes.
Even though in real life it'd be like a, you know, chicken shit about it, but like in stage, like the bad guy is always more entertaining.
Absolutely, yes, for sure.
So this is our little secrets house, and this is a question I pose to everyone that's visited so far. What is this room?
Okay, I think it's a crypt.
Oh, okay. Why'd you say that?
I don't know. It just seems crypt-like.
It just seems crypt-like.
Like it's you know those like underground rooms in churches that are sort of have those dark corners. That window doesn't look out onto anything else. It's very empty. It's probably because we've been talking about Northanger Abbey.
Right. So that's just me in your head.
So there were bodies here, like you know.
Oh wow. Well, that's a very interesting interpretation, and I kind of want to do this somewhere here. This is our flat white room.
Okay. As in, there's a flat white on the table?
It's a flat white, and the room is white, and it's all flat.
Yeah.
So a friend was like, how do I make more Melbourne rooms? And so I suggested coffee. It's like, oh my god.
Okay.
What if I did a flat white room?
I think also
your crypt story is better.
The window kind of looks, from some angles, looks a bit like a cross.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's
the rooms that come off. From some angles it looks like the things are all even, but from some other angles it looks like a bit more of a Christian cross. And then the rooms that come off it are all dark. That just crypts to me. Yeah. Villains are de facto much more exciting. I think that's probably true, and I think it sort of comes back to like you know, Tolstoy about happy families. Happy families and good people are all very similar in lots of ways, and villains are all very different.
Yeah, and like even in like video games, for example, like the player character for the most part is often a blank slate because you don't, you know, you want the player to be able to put themselves in the character. So even in like stories which are much more like shoot 'em ups or whatever, the hero is always kind of bland because you don't want to like put too much personality to override what the player wants. But the bad guy is often like way more campy and way more entertaining.
Yes. As
an offset. And then you have this question about like queer coding villains. You know?
Yes. And I think that's a very interesting question because is it, and obviously, you know, you don't want to continually code queer people as evil, but if they're generally more interesting, then what does that say?
Yeah, it's like I think the Hays Code back then, that was because you couldn't write like happy queer people.
No,
They always
you
had to
cannot.
meet that a bad end to fit the Hays
Yes,
Code. So it's like,
yes,
here's a character who's allowed to be like super camp and super
yes,
weird,
yes,
but the payoff is they have to die in the end.
yes, yes, yes,
And then
and
like people are surprised when we identify with the monsters.
yes, yes, yes,
It's like
yes.
that.
Well,
Well,
especially given the links to various forms of violence that have been enacted against queer people for
hmm
ever.
yeah,
The tragedies also make sense in that context too.
yeah. So this is our butterfly club room.
Oh yeah, it so is.
Have you like? Let's talk about like your other theater work while we're here in the butterfly club.
Okay.
Yeah. You, besides running Austen Con and talking about Jane Austen, you are also a theater director and
Yes.
playwright.
Yes.
Like your day job
Yes.
is as a doctor and also
Yes.
apparently an OHS agent for real
Oh no,
workers.
it's mostly through being a doctor that I end up doing OHS stuff.
Well, see, like I remember when we like first got to know each other, I saw your website and was like the day job pays for the directing, or like it was like in your free time you're a doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's still the case. I still make no money. um, yes, yes. As you mentioned, I did direct your show.
Yeah, like how do you like
totally.
what?
Yeah.
How do you balance the kind of doctoring and the directing? I'm just thinking of like the sort of South Asian family stereotype, like, oh, be a doctor. There's nobody in the
Yes.
arts.
Yes.
Thankfully, my family weren't pushing me that way, only because they knew I was very squeamish. But
my family are actually really squeamish as well. But I'm not squeamish. And people don't believe me when I say that my family never pushed me to be a doctor.
right,
They did not.
it's like,
they were
why
just-
else would you be a doctor?
Yeah, yeah. Why else would a brown person be a doctor unless their parents made them? Like, But I was young and idealistic, and I totally wanted to save the fucking world. So,
Yeah.
And then I realized that I was no good at saving the world, and thought I'd make art instead. It works for me because I've managed to find work that's like predominantly daytime work. So that leaves me evenings and things to do things that I enjoy.
Mhm.
I have a steady income. That means that I have the freedom to be able to be like, all right, we don't have funding to run an Austen Con, but let's do it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did you get into directing?
Um,
Like, you've told me a fun story about like your production company's name when we first met.
I think I just wanted to do productions that that I didn't see other people doing.
Yeah.
So
Follow me.
and so it started when I was 14, and I'd seen the importance of being earnest, and I was like, I want to do that, and I didn't know of any amateur theatre groups in my area at the time, so I was like, so me and my friends are going to do this.
Right.
And we borrowed our church hall, and we painted backdrops on big bits of paper that were sticky taped together. And kind of hung over these, those classroom dividers?
Oh, yeah.
So we just hung the paper over that. And because they're not that tall, during the third act, somebody had these stuffed carrots that they kind of popped up over the top of it, over the top of the wall, over these, Edwardian type drawings, and sort of played with them. And that's, 24 carat.
24 carats.
There was only one at the time, but we've gone to 24.
This is our library.
Yeah. Ooh. And I just kept having ideas for plays or theatre pieces or whatever, and being like, I really want to do that. How do you do that other than being a director? I don't know. So I just did it and decided I liked it.
Did you have to take like directing classes or anything? Like how does one become a director aside from?
I'm sure there's people that I've worked with who would argue I should have taken directing classes. I love that the library's in the open air.
Yeah, an open air library is next to our museum, and this is our observatory, aka Alien Research Center.
Okay.
Because aliens exist in this universe.
Awesome. Does it not rain on the island?
It does. Yeah,
Okay.
it was raining earlier today.
And the books are fine?
They're real fine. Everything's
Okay,
waterproof.
that's great. That's fabulous. I had no idea what I was doing when I started. Yeah. So the first time I would direct things, I would say things like, in my mind, it's more like Basil Fawlty.
Okay.
So can you do it more like Basil Fawlty? And the person would do that. And, in my mind, it's more like the character of Rimmer from, Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Can you do it a bit more? And literally, for one person's performance, I did this whole thing of like, no, more Rimmer, no, more Fawlty, no, more Rimmer, no, more Fawlty. How do I decide on who to cast? When I first started out, it was whoever would work with me.
It's like, you're here, done.
Yes, you're
in the museum, by
related
the
to
way.
me, and therefore you're stuck with me. Ooh.
This is Blathers, our curator. I'll take you up to our art gallery.
Please,
while we continue chatting about
and so
how
now
people
when
get in your shows.
Yes, so now when I work with people, if I'm casting for my shows, I think I'm looking mostly for people who have the same kind of idea about the show and the script and the character that I do. And sometimes people have great ideas, but they're not fitting necessarily with my sort of overall idea. And being able to kind of work really well and communicate really well, I just feel like that's really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our art gallery. We're still missing a bunch of people, so if you are an Animal Crossing player and can send us our missing art, please get in touch, ACNH Fringe.cc. But yeah,
okay, hang on. No, hang on. I've got questions.
Oh yes, you've got questions. Yes,
I've
ask
got
us
questions
questions.
about the art. Okay.
Yes,
So
yes,
is the
ask us
art-
questions.
Has the art been there and gone missing? Or has it
So,
been there and been returned to its countries of origin?
That is an excellent question. Actually, it's funny you asked that today because I can show you the character kind of in charge of this. So, in game, in the world of Animal Crossing,
Yes.
the story is that there is a trader called Red, who actually is on our island right now. We can go visit him after this. He comes by with us,
Oh my gosh.
and he's got 4 pieces of art, and
Sunday
some
in
of
the
them are
park.
genuine. And if you give the genuine one to Blathers, the owl creator you met earlier, he will put it up
Sorry,
here. And you can...
what's the one on the far left?
This one?
Not far left. And so there's Sunday in the park, then there's the Van Gogh,
Yeah,
Van
these are
Goghs.
all like, in real life, they're actual.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't recognize that one that I'm standing right in front of.
Okay, well, we can pull it up for you.
Please.
Yeah, so in game, so you have Red, this like very shady trader type who shows up on your island. He's on here today.
Oh, Cezanne, yeah, cool.
And he has 4 pieces of art every time he comes to visit, and some are fakes. Actually, most of them are fakes, and some are real. And you can give them to Blathers, and if the real ones, if they are real, he will take them and put them up here.
Yeah.
If they're fake, he like yells at you about it. It's like, no, you've been ripped off. But sometimes the fakes are even more hilarious. Like we have the real Rosetta Stone here.
Yes.
But in the alien research section, we have
No.
the fake one because it
love
glows
it.
blue. And so my headcanon is that it's real, but it's an alien language.
Yes. Yes.
But
I love
it's
it.
interesting you say that because like when this museum started becoming a thing in Animal Crossing, like it was an update like a few months ago when they added the museum. Some people were talking about like, oh, where is Blathers getting this art from? Like, where has it been stolen from?
Well,
like,
especially this. Is that supposed to be Terracotta Warriors or something similar?
Yeah, it's the Terracotta Warriors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this question of like, it's like I remember a Twitter thread where someone was like, Blathers is committing a war crime Because he has all of he never asked where's it come from.
Yeah,
He's just like, oh my god, you have picked out this genuine article for our museum.
Yeah.
Doesn't you can learn stuff about it when you click on it and it tells you, but there's no questions about where Red, our shady trader, comes from.
Yeah.
And it kind of ties into this larger question people had when the game started. The game first came out, because Animal Crossing as a franchise has been around for quite some time. But this version of the game, the one we're on, is the first time where the conceit is you're on a deserted island.
Right.
So you start on a deserted island, and then you develop it however you want, and you can design it, and people move in, and basically you see the results in front of you. But even from the moment the game released, you had this question about well, you're taking over a supposedly deserted island. What does that mean in terms of colonization? And how does that reflect, whose island was it previously, and how did you come to be here? And what does it mean to develop an island, So it's, you have the questions about that. You have the questions about, where did the art in the museum come from? Who did it get stolen from?
Yes.
But I don't know if, the Nintendo ever thought of too deeply about it.
No, I'm guessing not.
And, most of the reason, this version of the game is a deserted island is because, in previous games you had, you were mayor of a town, but you only had so much flexibility in how to design, and this was just here. Design it how you want. This is Red. This is Red, by the way.
Oh,
this is our shady trader.
Yeah, you can tell because he's emitting pollution.
There is that, as one of his many problems, yes. So you come by and you see, he has selection of art. I bought this one. He only lets you, and he always oh, we're going to give you the cousins discount, which is basically the same price. And,
so we can,
show the fake...
He drops his G's.
First time you meet him, he tries to sell you a piece of art for 4 million bells, and I'm like, excuse me. No, mate, have you zoomed into this the wistful painting?
That's the girl with the pearl earring?
Yes, but look at her earring. Look at her earring.
Let's see.
Because I'm seeing a slightly different thing to what you're seeing. But do you see what her earring is?
No.
How do you zoom into it?
I'm just looking at the Twitch stream.
Yeah, you need to go take a closer look at it. Japan hasn't been great to the Ainu or Okinawans. Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is colonization and
everywhere. And this kind of perception where it's oh, Asia only got colonized by white people, whereas Japan has been a colonizing force to a lot of Southeast Asia. And itself.
Also China and...
Yeah, there's all of that. But would Nintendo be aware of this? I don't know. At Nintendo, what are your feelings about it? Do you see? Do you see what?
Can we what am I saying? Zoom in? Can we?
Yeah, you take a closer look. You can zoom in.
What happens if It looks real from there. Oh no, it's a star.
It's a star.
Not a pearl earring. It's a star earring.
Yes, that's
wrong, because that's not the movie Scarlett Johansson starred in.
I mean, Scarlett Johansson is also kind of fake.
I mean, that's a whole separate thing, yes.
So it's probably this is the Scarlett Johansson version of Girl with the Pearl Earring. Yeah, so there's fakes, but a lot of the fakes are very entertaining. There's the fake Mona Lisa. Oh my god, I need to show you. I'll show you. We'll take you to the Fringe Hub next, our dedicated Fringe building. Yeah. I'll just wait for you / me to come out from Reds. The fake Mona Lisa has a smirk.
Nice.
I kind of call her Snarky Lisa.
Nice. So she should be. Everybody's staring at her for the last however many hundred years.
Right. It's I'm over it. This is an ancient statue. Oh, I don't know if you can get a good view because it's covered up by this spaceship. But that's a fake ancient statue because it floats and has demonic blue eyes. But again, my headcanon is it's real Disney.
Yeah. And that's the Rosetta Stone that's blue and fake.
Yes, and actually that's my story.
Yeah.
So this is our Fringe Hub. This is where all the magic happens. We see it on the lower half. It's our outdoor auditorium.
Ooh.
And then if you go in, this building is based on Trades Hall.
Yep.
You can tell from the right. I saw Photoshop Mona Lisa holding a cat. I think, like, I don't know if you meet the one that's in Red's painting. That's like a different painting. I forget the name, but in the original, she's holding a ferret. But in the fake version, she's holding a weasel. Or like kind of a black ferret of some kind.
Okay.
So this is our common rooms. It's based on the actual common rooms in Trades Hall.
Yeah, yeah.
That room is secret and no, there's nothing there. Don't worry about it.
Okay. That's what somebody would say with something to hide, but sure.
I do not know anything about that at all. This is our office. Well, I'll wait for you to come by. There's like a couple seconds delay between when people can come in. Ta-da! This is the office. You can turn around and just like.
Ooh.
This is where officially the work happens.
Yeah.
But where actually the work happens is somewhere else.
Okay. This is the room where it happens.
The room where it might happen.
The room where it sometimes happens.
Yes. The room that we put on display for where it happens. There is, on the other side, across from the office, is our green room.
I suppose it's a bit late for me to go to the green room now.
Well, if you come by, we are part of our big Fringe festival on the 20th of November. It's a 2-hour variety show that we may or may not have Sharmini or company in. And this is where you can come to prepare, or just like
nice
and hang out.
And
you
it's
know,
green and everything. I love it.
This is based on the spare rooms, which is another room in Trades Hall. Like it's what Melbourne Fringe uses as their backstage a lot. But I saw the picture, I was like, oh my god, it's green, and we have very similar decor we could use.
Yeah.
So if you happen to go to the real spare rooms, you'll be able to see like, oh my god, yes. So this is as close to a copy as we can get. Now let's go upstairs, because I was talking to you about fake art.
Yeah.
Real art. We keep the fake. My aim is to get like one of each real art and fake art is used as decor. But if you go upstairs, look at our collection. There's like gallery slash. There's a snarky Lisa. There's a terracotta warrior with a shovel. You know, there's like all of these are fakes.
You've got to figure that terracotta warriors would have needed shovels.
I know. I think I got fooled by that once, and I was like, "Oh, this must be a real one," and Nana's like, "No." Yeah, so these are all fakes. They're all like, if you zoom in, they're slightly different. If you're watching this and you have actual custom art,
that looks like a little bit like Angelica Houston.
Who does?
The Mona Lisa.
Well, there you go. A new movie, Angelica Houston. If you're watching this,
yes.
Anyone who's watching this, who may or may not be Angelica Houston, if you have actual art, we can put it in the game. Like we have the Melbourne Fringe logo in the game. You can download it for your own island. But if you have art you want to share, get in touch with us, ACNHFringe.cc. We would love to feature it here amongst the fake art. We want like real art. Get in touch. We'd love to have you on there. And now let's get you to see the stage.
Woohoo!
Our stage is in the basement. And I've got a bit of a surprise for you in the stage. If it's horrible art from many years, especially if it's horrible art from many years back. Like,
okay.
Okay. Welcome to what I call Rabbits and Wolves. Our tribute to hares and hyenas. It's like
so
it's
fabulous.
You know, like I found I want to shout out to Nikki Imberger, who I don't know if she's watching or not, but she has made a mini hares in her island. I was like, oh my god, it's a great idea. So
yes, I love it.
So here's the.
I love it. Oh, I love the chairs.
This is a surprise, aka also a preview of something you may be able to see at Austen Con. But hang on.
Oh yes.
Let me see if I can like pull it off or not. Hang on.
Okay.
This is. I'm not trying this. Will it let me? Apparently not. No! Wait. Hang on. The thing I'm trying to do, it will not let me do.
Oh
Oh
no!
no, never mind. I got it. Okay, it's fine. Technical difficulties. Ta-da! Hang on. You've heard of me.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much!
You've heard of me. Most people have heard of me. You may have heard the rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. That was me. I mean, it's not entirely true. She wasn't my mother. She was my stepmother. And she only took 18 whacks. My father took 11. They deserved it. They were mean and controlling and cruel and selfish, and they were determined to stop me from doing what I wanted. I tried to do what they wanted, but that didn't work. So, you know, I took what was mine, the inheritance, the power. I took it. I didn't know any other way to do it. Ta-da!
That is so good! Yay!
That is something you may see. Oh well, you probably will see in Austen Con, because
Yeah, well,
aside
if you
from
come,
me
you will
running
see it.
around pretending to on Animal Crossing, I am also going to be performing that,
Yes!
written by Sharmini. And I'm back.
And you'll have to. Are we gonna make people guess what the connection is between Lizzie Borden and Jane Austen? Oh no, you're gonna shout.
oh, the connection. Why this play came to be, this monologue came to be in the first place. It is because I got the two of them, Lizzie Borden and Lizzie Bennet, mixed up in conversation with Shamini one time. And then we came up with this line, which I can still never remember half of it, where it's like, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a man in possession of a good fortune must be also in want of a knife.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm still waiting for that whole play. But in the meantime,
Yes.
you get Lizzie Borden / Lizzie Bennet coming to you at Austen Con.
Yes.
How do we send horrible art again? ACNH Fringe.cc. There's contact details. I'm trying to work out how to choose contact details are there. More information is there. If you want to perform at our stage, we're also looking for performers. You can do Lizzie Borden, Lizzie Bennet, do whatever you want. Really. Get in touch. ACNHFringe.cc. Can we send it via Twitter? You could, actually. Our Twitter. Follow us on our social media. Our Twitter is at ACNH Fringe. Facebook is ACNH Fringe Fest. We also have a Discord, but hardly anyone's on there. If you can find it, join us. We have we have a newsletter. All of that information can be found by our website, acnhfringe.cc. Follow us. Yeah. Tell us some of the performers you have, aside from me trying to do two things at once. Who else do you have lined up for Austen Con?
So we are doing like a it's like a cabaret burlesque variety hour.
Mm-hmm.
So we have got Law Burns, who's going to be as an instrumentalist, who's going to be playing Bradley. Bradley, are you still there, Bradley? We'll be singing.
Yes. Good old Bradley.
Yes. You may know Sonia.
Oh yeah, what is Sonia doing?
She's singing. She's actually, so we were actually planning a musical for this year until thank you COVID, nobody will be singing in anybody else's presence for a little while.
If Bradley's still here, yes.
Yes, Bradley. But so the music is there, it's ready to go. So Sonia's going to perform a couple of songs from what will hopefully be next year's 24 Carat production.
Oh,
yeah.
So it's an Austen musical.
It's Sense and Sensibility, the musical.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And one of the songs is called I Want, because I was like, this is where the I Want song goes in the musical. I wonder what we should call the I Want song. I mean, I'm very literal. It's just called I Want.
Sonia, not that you're watching this, but I know your husband has a copy of Animal Crossing. Come here and sing it for us.
Yes, Grant, if you're listening, let Sonia know to come out and do that. So we've got
musicians. We have no musicians. Funny.
Okay. Yeah. We've got a woman who's a dress historian, is going to be talking about global piracy and smuggling and East India Company trade routes and that kind of stuff.
Red, our shady trader.
Basically, talking about how the East India Company screwed over so many people and the British government was all behind them and all that kind of stuff.
And he's our dress historian.
Dress historian. So talking mostly from the point of view of fabric, cloth, and a lot of the stuff that we think of in Jane Austen's day, the classic, like the classic Regency look was that white muslin dress, right? That really, that the Empire line white dress. That was all India cotton.
Ah, yeah.
So the British were trying to get up their own cotton industry, but their machines were still not as good as Bengali weavers. And so it's this massive industry. Like the shawls were Kashmiri shawls. This is the invention of paisley, which was Iranian Indian kind of design that the British and Scottish appropriated. So it's all connected. It's all connected. And so one of the things that, so you know about this, Tiara. You've played a smuggling woman before.
Have I?
Yes. Only in a game though. It's fine. So the British government trying to put the Indian textile merchants out of business raised tariffs.
Oh, right. I was like,
on
which
imports.
game?
Yes. Raised tariffs on imports. Yeah. So people would smuggle in Indian textiles. And Jane Austen, because she had brothers who were in the Navy, had a method for getting those textiles and getting them ashore without being seen and taxed.
Yes. Speaking of textiles, we are in Able Sisters right now, who are our resident fashion designers.
Awesome.
So,
I love it so much.
So like, if we can get the Melbourne Fringe as a download. Melbourne Fringe logo. You can download Melbourne Fringe, yes, the entire festival.
Download the whole of Melbourne Fringe.
Mace, how about you get into the dressing room and see what we have to wear? Sharmini, you can look at it and see.
I love it.
It's
great.
That's so cool though, like you have a dress historian, but not just talking about like, oh yes, in Austen's time they would wear this, but also here is where all of that.
Yeah, that was something I specifically requested of her. She said, what sort of stuff do you want me to talk about? And I was like, I want to hear more about. Tell me more about how the British screwed the Indians over.
There was this a few months ago. There was this thing going around, a discussion going around, like YouTubers who do like historical reconstruction costumes, right?
Yeah.
And it was this particularly talking about like I think a peacock dress or something.
I think you sent me the video link to that.
Yeah, so there was a discussion about this very, very ornate dress called, I think, the peacock dress. But then, like, as a few reconstructors were, initially were trying to make it because, let's challenge ourselves by making this, like, very epic outfit.
Yeah.
And then from there, like, one of them was looking to it and go, no, this is based on a history of, like, exploitation and slavery. And what does that mean for those of us who are historical reconstructors of tombs and trying to recreate these things when our ancestors were probably the people who subjugated others to make this in the first place.
That's right. And even I mean, I'm pretty sure it was in that video as well, that even in the UK, the history of textiles there was that they were putting little kids in the mills because they were the ones that had the little arms that could get all the fluff out of the machines, and then of course they inhaled it and died. So the history of textiles is really fraught, but also I think like those questions about appropriation and about how we deal with the darker history. That sounds so dramatic when I say it like that, but the crap stuff in the history of things that we love and enjoy is, I think, something that Austen fan communities are slowly coming to terms with. And that's one of the things I think is interesting. Like we've got the theatre company Artistic is going to be talking about So yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that's fabulous. Yeah. Masked sound. I have cast a dog before in a production, so I would totally cast a cat.
Also, this is probably more exciting to like Animal Crossing players, but this is Celeste. She comes by when there are shooting stars potentially,
Oh.
and she gives you space-related recipes to craft. So we might see some shooting stars tonight.
Very nice.
Potentially. A Scorpio lamp. Ah yes, we're Scorpio. Yeah, what artistic? Yeah, I've heard about them. But
Yeah.
they do a lot of work with like neurodivergence in the art.
Yeah, so they're talking about reading Pride and Prejudice through that lens, and whether, particularly Mr. Darcy and Mr. Collins, whether they might actually be on the spectrum. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. Yes, and I believe they've actually got a podcast coming out that sort of explores that in more detail as well. But we'll hear more about it on Saturday. But yeah, so that's the stuff that we're looking. That's, you know, we're doing other stuff too, like Christmas decorations of the time of, you know, Austen, and like
Christmas
the dancing
decorations.
No, they would stick cloves into oranges and stick them on their trees and all that kind of stuff. So so we've got a real mix of things for people who like doing the hands-on stuff, and for people who like to ask the thorny questions. The demographics of the Jane Austen fans and fan community. I'm certainly not an expert. It definitely skews female, and I would have said skews white, but it depends on what you mean by the fan community, because I think there are plenty of non-white fans out there that have been kind of marginalized, silenced, not felt as welcome in more public fan spaces. And again, I think that's something that fans of historical fiction, fans of Jane Austen, fans of historical recreation are trying to come to terms with, or if they're not trying, then they should be. If they're not, why not? But it does seem to span like what I would consider young. So anybody who's younger than me is young. Through to old, older. It does span generations, but does skew female, and does skew, at least in public fan spaces, white.
Yeah, that's Juliet, by the way, the unicorn we've been talking about earlier.
Oh right. The unicorn, fabulous unicorn.
And we were just at the workshop earlier. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but there was that workshop in front of our boutique. I'll just give you another quick run around where we make our own things most of the time. Because in this version of the game, which you never could before in Animal Crossing, you can actually DIY things.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, you couldn't before.
Nice.
So you can make things now. So you have like woods and stones and stuff. So that's new with this game.
That's very cool. Gemstones. I think that's true, that it is slow, but there are plenty of people out there who are real champions of progressing those complexities, or at least progressing inclusion of fans who are interested in dealing with those complexities. So, I mean, I try my best to stay out of comment sections online, but there are certainly fans of color who are speaking up, and there are fans who also not embrace the problematic elements, but are really interested in engaging with those problematic elements, even though they're still fans. So I think there's
you can be a fan and critique something. Wow!
Whoa! I know.
This is a little cafe because
I love it.
Melbourne.
I love it. Cafe. I haven't been to a cafe yet.
Oh my god! So actually, did you see the first Dog on the Moon piece where it was like I think a couple of months ago, where it's like, what are Melbourne people looking forward to after lockdown? And one of the things is like, I just want to go to a cafe and buy some coffee and sit down and drink the coffee in the cafe I got it from.
Yeah.
And then we have a tribute. Another one was, I just want to go to IKEA. It's like, I lost it when I saw it. But we have another tribute to that comic, which is this. That's one of the other panels was. I just want to go anywhere and buy turnips by the sea. So that you can buy turnips by the sea, and that is the first dog on the moon. A little treat.
Nice, I love it.
It's
That's so
in-game turnips. So it's like that's
yeah,
right. For
I have heard of in-game turnips. That's the only thing I knew about Animal Crossing.
the turnip trade.
The turnips, yeah.
It's like the in-game stock market, as in it's a stock and therefore that's a stock market.
Oh my gosh, I did not realize that.
And I think the pun works in Japanese too. That's why
Really?
turnips. Yeah.
That's fabulous.
This game is full of puns. This game is.
Yeah. I do love a good pun.
Let's see what the shops has. The shops run by child labor.
Awesome.
So what's this about a musical? Are you at liberty to talk more about it, or are you keeping this hush hush?
That's not that hush hush.
I mean, it's your musical, so you decide.
That's right. Yeah. Sense and Sensibility. Yeah, that liberty. Who's gonna stop me? The artistic director of 24 Carat, possibly.
There's no embargo here.
No embargo. So it's a Sense and Sensibility, for people who don't know the story, is the story of two sisters, and one's the very sensible one, and one's the very kind of emotional, sensitive one. And
so it's basically Mary and Kitty have a show together.
Yeah, basically. Yes, that's the story. And it's really it's about a lot of things, but it's about finances really, and the trades that people make for security and the trade-offs that we make for peace of mind, or all of that stuff. So
it's capitalism,
that sounds romantic, doesn't it? It's basically a capitalism via Austen, yes, because the marriage mart was that for women particularly, but also to a certain extent for men, and we forget that too, that men who were impoverished would look to, or relatively impoverished. Most of the people that Austen wrote about were not actually poor; they were poor relative to other people in their class. But anyway, that they would seek to marry well and marry rich women. So we think about women marrying up in terms of fortune, but not so much of men. But Austen wrote about that as well.
Right.
And
such a Bollywood movie thing.
Absolutely, for sure.
What if Jane Austen is actually Indian?
What if? Well, can I tell you a true story?
Oh, okay.
About Jane Austen.
Yep.
So there is a Jane Austen family connection to Warren Hastings, who was the governor of India, who was impeached.
Oh.
Yes, and the connection is this. Jane Austen's aunt was a spinster who thought she was never going to get married in England, so she got on a boat to India, because where else do you go to meet nice young English men except India? Yeah. So she married this guy who was relatively wealthy but was years older than her. He had been married before and did not have children by his first wife, who had passed away. Yeah. They got married and never had kids until this couple met the Governor General of India. He wasn't the Governor General then, I don't think. He was slightly lower down, would be promoted. Yeah. And he became very close friends with Jane Austen's aunt, and they spent a lot of time together and were very friendly. And then not long after that, she suddenly got pregnant.
Ah.
Yes. And Jane Austen's cousin was born. And the Governor General of India was that cousin's godfather.
Right.
He was a very generous, very caring godfather who happened to look like his goddaughter an awful lot. Suspicious. Yes. So this cousin eventually.
Wait, is Warren Hastings Indian?
No, he's English. No. So yeah. So sorry, I shouldn't have said that. There's no actual family connection to Indian people
that we know of.
Colonizers that we know of. Yes. So this cousin of Jane Austen's grew up to marry a French aristocrat, which went really well for her in 1789. Yeah. And she became a widow and married Jane Austen's brother, And then Warren Hastings, for her wedding present, gave her like £10,000 or something. And that couple eventually lent money to Jane Austen to help her publish her novel.
Oh wow! So basically, she was indirectly funded by
the East India Company. The East India Company.
Oh no!
Quite
conspiracy
possibly.
is afoot.
Yes, there is some possibility.
There's shooting stars.
Woo! Shooting
Oh
stars!
That's very
I love
special.
it. Yes.
Well, we talk about conspiracy theories involving Jane Austen being
Yes.
sponsored by the East India Company.
Yes. 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 So Jane Austen had a connection, family connection to the East India Company, even if this guy wasn't her cousin's, natural father. He was her godfather, and he was very famously he basically was set up to take the fall for all the shit that the East India Company had been doing for centuries by that stage.
Yeah.
He was ultimately acquitted, but only after a trial in Parliament that lasted for about 6 years.
Yeah.
So that is the Jane Austen connection to India and the East India Company.
Wow.
Yes.
Like growing up in Malaysia, we have to learn history. It's mostly like history that pertains to Malaysia, but the East India Company was like a big part of it.
Oh hell yeah!
This is our little meditation area.
I love it.
Look at for shooting stars.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if because of working on Creative Edition, you would have heard about P.C. Sarkar, who is like
Yes.
this historical
World's greatest magician.
Yes, and like one of his favorite things to do was to troll the white governors.
Yeah.
In the region. It's like, well, you make me I'll make you prime minister now,
Yeah.
So I just wonder if like Jane Austen's godparent-in-law got pranked by P.C. Sarkar at the
that would be so cool.
I don't know if the timing would work because
What time is P.C. Sarkar?
Well, P.C. Sarkar met my grandfather. My grandfather.
Okay, so that's probably true.
That probably doesn't like work out time-wise, but at the same time, would be hilarious though. It's like
that would be amazingly hilarious. Yeah.
Just like, are there stage magicians in Jane Austen? It's like, not trolled my own grandfather.
There are not yet.
Not yet.
But that's why we write them in. And I see that Bradley says that the Bridgerton trailer just came up in his Twitter feed, which I assume means that we spoke it into being because that's how marketing algorithms
We have Joker Fest in it.
Yep. Yeah.
Joker Festing. For people who are like, what the hell is Joker Festing? It's kind of this term that
I love this concept.
that I have come up with. It's basically like the idea of manifesting, which annoys me to tears. It's like, oh, you just think about it and it will come true, and just visualize things and but things that start off as jokes are successful. Like Queen Lady Magician started off as a joke. This Animal Crossing Fringe Festival started off as an application I made to Melbourne Fringe's Jewel Box Performances Grant for Artists of Color. Literally in 15 minutes, I was like, what if we did a show on Animal Crossing? You're not expected to go anywhere. Instead, they go as big as, now we're doing promo live streams with people like you, and we have a dedicated island, and we're doing a big Fringe Festival show. And literally this came out from like a 15-minute application. So
That's
shout
fabulous.
out to Dual Box Performances, and also the Your Space Grant with Darwin Arts for supporting artists with disabilities. And it's great that you probably appreciate this too. Like, we are supported by projects that are about artists who are marginalized in some way. But the project isn't about our marginalization. Like, it's not about us, like our race trauma, or about, oh no, what's like to be disabled. We're just allowed to be nerds.
Yeah.
And, like, you're talking about like how colonization and race and other issues obviously figure a lot into your work with adapting Jane Austen and such, but it's also like you get to be a fan. Like Austen Con is also a similar project of nerdery.
Absolutely, you
get to do that, and we don't often get to see like marginalized artists get to do that kind of work. Just like, we're a nerd of this particular thing.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that people, let's bring it back to Bradley and the Bridgerton trailer, is that people are loving about this concept that Shonda, and we all just call her Shonda. She's
Shonda
like, Shonda Rhimes. She's no longer Shonda Rhimes. She's just Shonda. is basically putting people of color into the Regency era as dukes and as viscounts and as the wealthy people, and being like, fuck it, we're not telling a story of oppression here. We're telling a story about that's a fantasy, really, about these fabulously wealthy people who have these fabulously wealthy lives, and the biggest issue is that there's going to be a scandal where they might be socially ruined, that kind of thing. And they've just put them in there, and they're not there to these people of color, I should say. They're not there to be oppressed or marginalized in that story. They're there to be the heroes and heroines there. And I think people are responding to that, and I think that's it's the way of the future, Tiara.
It's a way of the future, but also it's a bit of a callback to like that era in the 90s where colorblind casting was more common. Like people talk about the Cinderella movie where Brandy plays. Yeah, and then like the
Vanessa
prince
Williams,
is
Vanessa
Asian, and the parents are like, one is white and one is black.
Yeah.
And like there is like, if you try to analyze racial lines in that movie, you will not get anywhere. But it was a fun movie.
Yes.
And it was fully colorblind casting. They didn't care that an Asian prince with a black and white parents. Like, so what? No one's gonna like question what they look alike. It was just they were the right people for the job.
And I think that stuff that's been happening in theatre for a lot longer than it's been happening in other spaces.
Interesting you say that.
Yeah, like I feel like colorblind casting for Shakespeare and all that sort of stuff has been happening for years and years and years and years. And it's partly sorry, not Vanessa Williams, it was Whitney. Bradley has corrected me. My apologies to Whitney.
Yes. Rest in peace, Whitney.
Yes, and 1,000 apologies.
Bradley's in The Singer. Yes, The Singer. You should look it up. It's fun.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. That's a musical by Rodgers and Hammerstein, who were the people who wrote fucking South Pacific. So speaking of things that are racially problematic, what was I talking about? No idea.
Oh, like kind of like casting in theater versus screen.
Oh, yeah. So I think it's happened for a long time there, and I think it's to do with the fact that theater is seen as a less, quote unquote, you can't. Can my character on Animal Crossing do finger quotes? Probably not.
No, alas.
A less realistic medium, whereas in film you have to get backgrounds and props and costumes to be period. Whereas stage has always been seen as like, oh, you can do a little bit of a mix. You can do black box with no sets. You can do all this kind of stuff, and therefore you can cast colorblind without having to worry about that so much. So I feel like theatre, not that theatre is the most woke space that you can imagine, but I feel like in terms of casting, it's been doing slightly better for slightly longer than film. Is my vibe.
Interesting you say that.
As a non-expert.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because like because of COVID-19, but even before COVID, really, there's all these discussions about like theater, at least in Australia, but I've seen discussions happening around the world too, like theater being a very white space. And there was this whole thing a few months ago about like the scholarship for aspiring theater students, and how like everyone they selected was white, and the students, the recipients en masse decided, you know what, we are going to turn this down because we see that it's unfair, and then that became like a big drama. But it's like you have like the kind of independent theater stuff, like the stuff we do, where it ends up having to kind of be more diverse only because a lot of it is made by people who don't see themselves represented. So we make our own art.
I mean, like, that's true to an extent, but we were talking about casting before, and casting, like, this is a true story. When I have put out casting calls for people of color, where it is specific in the description, I'm looking for a person of color for this role. I'm casting Othello. I'm casting, whatever. Yeah. I will get more white people applying than people of color.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh yes, Shakespeare. Yes, I will totally.
Yeah, that's right.
Apply. Like I've seen
Yeah.
that play out too, because they totally missed that, and they're like, but what's the color? Like, they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But it might
Yeah.
also be like a mainstream versus like indie thing too.
Yeah. I
Like
think
musical
so.
theater is so mainstream, and it's like there's this whole thing about Pippin,
Yep.
and like the leading player who is always played by a person of color. They cast someone from the U.S. Somehow they managed to break the uh, border closing due to COVID, and like I'm sure the person they cast is a fine actor, but it's just like there were clearly more people of color here in Australia to do it.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
also cast like a known racist as part of it too. It's like
Yeah.
you could have done this could have been so much better.
Yeah, I think there's similar
yet.
discussions around, Hamilton as well.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do you know who's being cast in Hamilton? Has it come up
No.
yet?
No, but I had heard that they were going to be bringing people in from the US for that as well. Yeah.
Alright. I remember when they first announced Hamilton here, I was worried they'd do like, oh, they're gonna cast white people here because they missed the point of the play. Also remember, like,
No, I mean-
every POC performer I know, literally everyone was like, how do I sign up to audition? How do I find out? I'm gonna send in, like, even people who've never done a musical in their life. They were like, I am going to send in my app
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, I assume that Bradley is auditioning for the role of George. the kid.
I have told this to him. Like, I watched Hamilton for the first time a little while ago, and I messaged him as soon as I saw the teachers, like, you could totally kill them all.
Yes, Bradley, you are our Jonathan Groff. That is how we feel
He
about you.
is totally Jonathan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bradley,
I mean,
look at
but
people
then
who
we-
are watching this and going, who the hell is Bradley? Bradley stars my best friend, and
Bradley Star is fabulous. If you don't
He
know
is
who Bradley
fabulous.
Star is, you should find out.
he is a cabaret performer. He's the Dark Princeling of cabaret. He is going to be an
He's an
Austen Con.
actor.
He's potentially also going to be in our Animal Crossing Fringe Festival, our
Nice.
variety show.
Nice.
Potentially, we're trying
Yeah.
to work out the details of that. But yes, 28th of November, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We're gonna have 12 hours worth of all kinds of things. We are in discussions with a potential duo, a comedy duo, to do like a guided tour of the Art in our museum and potentially talking about the stolen out here like we have earlier. We've got a variety show in the evening. We've got we've got comedy lined up. We've got some spoken word. We've got other things happening. We've got a board game running. And we're
Wow.
also looking for more ideas. So please get in touch, acnhfringe.cc or ACNH Fringe on our social media. We would like to program you if you've got stuff, even if you don't have the game. Like Sharmini doesn't have the game. And
Nope.
yet she's here joining
Yep.
me. So we can make it happen. We can definitely get you on board.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to be in Melbourne. You
Yeah.
know, this is the power of the internet and the power of Animal Crossing, and also the power of it being 12 hours. You probably have a way to slot in people from
Shout out to
elsewhere.
Maze for who's controlling my character.
Yes, Maze
making me do all
Wallen,
fun
our
things.
live stream producer, who is making the tech happen, and is also an accomplished game audio designer in their own
Ooh.
right,
Nice.
in their day job.
Yeah.
Maze is cool. Clap, clap,
Um,
clap. Yes, we're all clapping for Maze. Yeah. While we look for more streaming stuff, what's next after Austen Con? Knowing this is a post-COVID, mid-COVID world where who knows what's happening.
Yeah.
You know,
So
what
so
else?
we've had some stuff. 24 Carats had some stuff on hold that we've had to put off this year that we ended up replacing with online stuff. So one is it's a comedy play set in 1950s Hollywood.
Ooh.
Yes, where there are zombies.
All the zombies.
Zombies in 1950s Hollywood, and it's going to be fabulous. So hopefully we'll be able to do that with a socially distanced audience in early next year. Yes, zombies. You heard that right. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and 1950s Hollywood and Zombies, and that is called Red Hollywood.
Bye, Bradley. By the way.
Yes. Yes, by Bradley.
Go on.
Yes. And I wrote a piece that we've been rehearsing now for nearly a year, which is a bit annoying. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, a
it's-
year for rehearsals. That is a luxury.
I know, but most of them have not been in person, so there's that. And it's called the Regina Monologues.
Yes!
Yes.
Yes!
It's a series of, it's 11 monologues and one dialogue of royal women from across the world and across history and across reality and mythology. So hopefully that will
see a
happen.
sneak preview of it at the Village Festival last year.
You did get to see a sneak preview of it at the Village Festival last year. Yeah. Yes, so it's been in rehearsals for way more than a year. Yeah. That's so annoying. And that was meant to happen in March, April of this year.
And
Thank you, COVID.
happened.
Yes. Yes.
What, the Black Plague wasn't, like, there wasn't a plague during Austen's time, was there?
There were constant little outbreaks of things, and consumption was certainly a thing, tuberculosis, but not the massive sort of Black Death type stuff.
And I wonder how would Austen, like, write about a pandemic?
Yeah, like she sort of touches on things that are serious. When she touches on things like war or slavery or whatever, it's in the context of the social group that she's writing about and how they are either affected or unaffected by it. And she can be quite I think, and this obviously, shows that I think that she's probably critiquing a lot of the, sort of wealthy white people's attitudes to these sorts of things. And she'll talk about, like, all the things that happened in the village while Elizabeth was away is that so-and-so got a new bonnet, a private was flogged within an inch of his life, and, the store ran out of milk, or whatever it was. And you get the feeling that she knows that these things are not the same as each other, but that the people in the town don't necessarily know that, right?
Right.
And Persuasion is a novel all about naval officers and Navy life, and she had brothers who were in the Navy. That is a thing that she and I have in common. We both have brothers that are in the Navy.
Yes. You are Jane Austen.
I am Jane Austen, yes. But Jane Austen would have known about things like press gangs that were still in operation. It's basically literal kidnapping of kids and young men to work on ships. And that was the thing that was happening, and quite possibly some of the heroes of that novel would have worked in those situations. So even though she writes these stories, I think that it is worthwhile considering, okay, so if we look at this story and we assume that she knows these things because she would have known about them, what do some of these more subtle references mean? Do they mean that she's fine with those things, or do we mean that she's writing about this in spite of the fact that those things were part of that situation as well? And like you said, just because somebody writes about a thing does not necessarily mean they're endorsing it.
Although now I'm imagining like an Austen version of the Mask of Red Death.
Okay, you're gonna have to educate me.
I don't know if I'm getting the title exactly right, but it was this story about a bunch of rich people who are trying to avoid a pandemic, and so they lock themselves in some rich guy's mansion, and they have a big party because they think that's going to protect them from from whatever pandemic is happening. I think the Black Death or the Red Death, I guess the name of the thing. And of course that doesn't work. Of course the Red Death comes and attacks them.
Yeah.
But people have been making a lot of that comparisons with COVID-19 and how like rich people think they can hide or it doesn't affect them, or like there was some news about people hosting like COVID parties. It's like, oh, let's just only infect each other and then we'll get immunized. Yeah.
I mean, it was a thing that people used to do when I was a kid with chickenpox.
Yeah.
But chickenpox was one of those things that wasn't really until I went to medical school that I was like, oh, chickenpox is serious. Like, people get really sick from chickenpox. you know,
Oh,
like
you get sick from shingles, which is what I got a couple of years
Oh,
ago,
gosh.
which was no fun.
no, that does not sound fun at all. Yeah, that's horrendous. Yes, no, it was, and it was because of stuff like that that I didn't realize that these things were serious. But yeah, I think she would write about that kind of thing, and I think that's why the come on, brain, like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies kind of works well because it's that idea of people trying to keep out this plague of zombies and how people are able to manage that and not able to manage that. And I feel like there'd be a lot in there about how, well, you know, maybe it's just how I would write it, and therefore I you know, make assumptions. Is that the people?
You are Jane Austen. You understand.
That's right. Yeah. But people who they depend on to perform their menial tasks for them are not able to be quarantined. Right?
Yeah. It's like the essential workers.
The essential workers.
I mean, even then, like, even now, we're talking about, like, housemaids who are vulnerable. Like, the rich clients would come back and get infected. But the rich clients can at least stay home. The housemates can't. They're often working in different places.
Yeah.
Although now I wanted to see, like, I've had this image now, like, Lizzie Bennet yelling at someone for not wearing a mask. It's like, I am not gonna marry you. You don't even wear a mask. Ah.
Yeah. Yeah. But Lydia would be like, what pandemic?
Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
It is a pandemic. I just want to go party.
Yeah, that's totally Lydia. Yeah, I'm sure that I saw a couple of different, like, which Bennett sister are you in the pandemic, you know, little graphics.
That's
like,
such a specific.
Yeah, at the start, and like Jane would be the one who's, you know, making masks for other people and giving them away, and you know, trying to keep her dad from going out without his mask on and that kind of stuff. And Lizzie would be arguing with people about the merits of wearing a mask versus not wearing a mask, and Mary would be reading all the scientific journals and making very solemn pronouncements about them. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That track. Mary is underappreciated. I feel like.
Oh, absolutely, Mary's underappreciated.
Like you know, like your play. That wasn't the first time I've seen the Pride and Prejudice story, but I read a graphic novel that showed a story.
Oh yeah.
Then I watched like your play, and I was trying to work out like what does Mary actually do in the story. I'm like, oh, she's not nearly as interesting in the actual Pride and Prejudice as she is in your play, where she's like the narrator.
Yeah.
And like we had to, I think there's someone, I forget who was doing like a play, like also from Mary's point of view where she's queer.
Yes, that's been done. Reading queerness into Mary. Also,
and you were doing a thing where like Mary or someone was going to be, one of the sisters was genderqueer, I think, or non-binary was the idea.
So Pride and Prejudice in 5 years was our last year's Austen play. And Kitty came out as gay.
Yes.
We talked about gender queerness as well, but yeah, we ended up with her having a crush on Charlotte's younger sister.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we had like this discussion over like ramen about Victorian era, talking about how they encouraged non-binary gender, so as mostly, but mostly so you would eventually become a better wife in the end.
Yes.
And it was sort of like weirdly like white supremacist.
Yes.
It's so strange. It's a whole
very
thing.
Strange.
And I'm trying to put towards the end of our live stream because that's clearly the best time to mention this conversation.
Well, that's the tomboy thing, right?
Yes.
And it comes up in Little Women, and Louisa Alcott was the writer of Little Women, was very into the idea of tomboy girls make great wives and mothers.
Right.
Yeah.
How though?
Well, because they get firstly because they get exercise.
They're fit.
They're fit. They know things about the world. Because it's considered tomboyish to have any, learning about anatomical and physiological processes.
Ah.
Yeah, so it was this weirdly sort of working within this weird framework of gender
Yeah.
to kind of invert it a little bit. That seems very quaint now, but obviously at the time it's something slightly different. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Our notions of gender weren't static even in the old days.
Oh gosh, no. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
past.
And there are scenes where the Bennett girls in Pride and Prejudice, the younger two, Kitty and Lydia, dress up some of the officers in bonnets and it's for fun. Happens in Charlotte Bronte, Jane Eyre. Mr. Rochester, the romantic hero, dresses up as a fortune teller and comes in and fake tells fortune.
What for?
Just to basically insult some of his guests to their face without getting in trouble for it.
Oh my god.
He really is a bit of a douche.
That's actually a really good way to do it, though. Like, I'm just reading you, and actually I'm just reading you in person, but like, I'm just making this reading your fortune when you were just reading it.
Yes, so then he'd be like, yeah. I wouldn't bother with that. I can tell from the card that you're a terrible person.
I swear a lot of
Grumpy,
actual tarot readers like that's
Yeah.
actually what they do.
Yeah, and then he gets to Jane and he's like, ooh, I see in the cards that you're going to marry your employer.
If any tarot readers are watching this and want to do something like this for the Fringe Festival, whether it's
Absolutely,
genuinely
that'd be
tarot
good.
readings or you just want to like insult people, like very absolutely open to that kind of
If
shenanigans.
you want to insult people, just call Tiara.
I mean, don't insult me. But
No.
I only
Don't
take insult
insult
to people
people
who
with
love
sort of
me enough
They're,
to know where to insult me the worst way.
yeah.
Or the hot reaction. So the Sharmini would not know this, but there was a Halloween event, and you got to learn different reactions. One of them is haunting, and one of them is scaring. And yeah, they persist. We got so many pumpkins. That was a ridiculous amount of pumpkins.
No. Oh my God.
Yeah. So while we're on our like last stretch of the live stream, is there anything in particular you want to plug? Any last words?
Last words. Oh my gosh.
Well, hopefully not like last words, like in the literal sense. I mean,
Yeah, so-
or you can come back as a zombie. But you know,
Yeah,
like any
true,
closing remarks.
true.
Like,
24 Carat Productions. Check out Austen Con. The fabulous Creatrix Tiara, the fabulous Bradley.
the
Also check
fabulous
out.
me that has to actually like finish this thing I promised to do.
Look, if you never finish, if you don't get more done, we'll use what you've already got because it's already fabulous. And Austen Con is on the 24 Carat website. So is Introduction to Emma, which is also a live streaming piece that is debuting on Thursday night. And that deals very directly. So I wrote that, and the premise is that some of the characters from Emma turn up in a like university literature class about the Book of Emma.
Yeah.
So they have to start talking about like post-colonial, post-feminist, postmodern stuff, and just shenanigans ensue. So that's a very, I mean, it's lighthearted, but it is also very specifically looking at things like gender and race and Austen. So if you're into that kind of stuff, or if you think you might be, or if you're not, come and critique it and tell me how terrible. I mean, just buy the ticket and then you can tell me.
There you go. Yeah, you want to critique someone, pay.
Yeah,
You have to pay for the privilege.
that's right. Yeah.
Compliments all this week.
Yeah. We'll take the compliments. Eddie.
What's like your dream adaptation project? Like if money or COVID were not an exception.
Dream adaptation project.
Or your dream like Austen related thing.
Oh, Austen related thing.
You know, since we're talking about
Yeah, I would love to do like a site-specific piece in a mansion.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, where you have like a lot of the heroines from different books having to interact with each other and doing it like a very immersive kind of style where people would come through and also be able to interact with them as well and have your tarot told by Catherine Mullins from Northanger Abbey or whatever, and sort of break it up into little pieces like that, sort of Austen vibes. That would be great.
Like Sleep No More.
Yeah, a little bit like Sleep No More. Yeah, Sleep No More combined with Jane Austen, combined with there was a smaller one in New York that was based on Lewis Carroll wrote the book Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah,
then she fell, and that had to close because of COVID, and that's really sad. But I really loved that in terms of how they directed people through it and gave you the full experience. It wasn't just kind of wander around this place and maybe you'll see bits and maybe you won't. Maybe you'll miss out on half the story and maybe you won't, kind of thing. It was a bit more directed and a little bit more, I don't know, because they were looking you in the eye, it's very personal and able to make really interesting connections with individuals.
Yeah. I and Bradley went to see like something like that where it was Alice in Wonderland but set in like a cabaret in like Nazi Germany, basically. And like I have a lot of strong feelings about the use of Nazi Germany as a backdrop without considering the impacts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was one of those like another immersive, like you get to meet different characters and kind of hear a little bit about their context. And the reference to Alice in Wonderland is semi-subtle. Like you kind of get what's going on with some of the characters. Like there's an actual Alice character, for instance. The Cheshire Cat is the MC of the cabaret. And there's references to it in the decor. But at the same time, it's kind of this interesting. You could just sit around and watch the cabaret show. And not care about the rest of the plot. Or you could get caught up in the plot somehow. And like you could hang out with Alice backstage, or you can like there's one character I spent time with, and she was talking about how she ran away from like an abusive family in China, but somewhere similar. It's an Asian actor was playing her, but she feels very vulnerable. So but I'm also down for any immersive performance at least.
I just think there's something like when you break people into smaller groups and you kind of know that the person is looking specifically at you and not at a group. Like it's just and the things that they say then will resonate in different ways than if you see it even in person in a theatre setting.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yes, thanks for, even though you came in with like, I do not understand what is happening. You were great. We are doing more live streams, Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. Our live stream this Saturday morning is with the organizers of Slut Walk Melbourne. So
excellent.
We're going to talk about like fighting slut shaming and about, supporting survivors. And all of that fun stuff. That's Saturday morning. We have more coming up Tuesdays and Saturdays, including a couple more surprise Saturday evening ones. As we mentioned, we have a Fringe Festival, a 12-hour Fringe Festival extravaganza on the 28th of November. If you want to be a part of it or be a part of this island in any other way, like contribute your ideas for this island. This is a dedicated island. More information about all of that can be found on ACNHfringe.cc or find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord with a newsletter. Otherwise, thanks to Sharmini, thanks to Maze, and thanks to all of you watching from everywhere. We will see you again on Saturday. Bye!